Hiya Mum, this is Lawrence speaking at about 5 o'clock in the morning. We're moving into the dry season over here, and when that happens the atmospheric pressure gets really strange. It's not just me, the locals suffer from it as well. You go through 3 weeks where it's impossibly hot during the day and you're groggy, you can't concentrate, and you just want to sleep during the day. But then at night the temperature plummets, and the atmospheric pressure changes again, and then you can't go to sleep. It's a bit of a nightmare. My students are affected, my staff, I have staff now, they're affected, so I'm now prepared to go to sleep as early as I can, anticipating I'll wake up at about 4 o'clock in the morning. So I try and sleep during the day as much as I can and do things at night. A good time for me to do recording, at least it's peace and quiet. Now I have quite a tale to tell actually, and I'm going to explain. I know you got really understandably fed up with me and sent that angry email to me when I was saying 1 minute I was breaking to pieces, the next minute I was alright, and I understand the situations when I saw the guy out in Singapore, but I'll tell you the story behind it all, because it's actually quite, in its own way, miraculous. Quite an incredible story. First of all, as I said before, things are working out very well here in Indonesia in the main. I've been reflecting on this and putting some posts out on news websites. Sadly, I just see the collapse of the UK. The news is just incredible, but totally matches what I foresaw in the UK. We look at civilization collapse. But out here, it's really weird. In the UK, almost everything I touched disintegrated. It was really hard for me to do anything. Whatever I tried to do, I was oppressed, kicked back, couldn't make anything fly. Whereas here in Indonesia, it's much easier. Yes, I've been overworked. Yes, Kaplan worked me to death, but that's true of any organisation that employs foreign workers, to be honest, because there's so few here. If you get one, you work them 3 times as hard. But I've been able to run my own business here. We've got a good team. Adriana is brilliant. She's rather insecure, poor lass. Family is not helpful at all in Indonesia. Families are a nightmare here. So I'm having to try and see if I can reprogram her and give her the confidence that I didn't have. But we've got a good team. It's generally working out very well. We're getting the results in the main. And it's actually quite easy for me. But the great thing is Christina's a natural-born teacher, I'm a natural-born teacher, Adriana's a natural-born teacher. We instinctively know how to run with students, and we instinctively know how to teach skills. Put it all together, all of us can get the complexity thrown out and make it simple for the students, and they get A's. I'm showing a set of students at the moment how non-fiction writing is all the same. 75% of all non-fiction writing is the same. So I set an exercise for 2 students who have been struggling. I went through how non-fiction writing is the same. They're very interested in an anime series I've been watching. They're very curious about it. I said, okay, I'll let you watch an episode. They watched an episode, they enjoyed it. I said, great, now write me a review. I've never taught you how to write a review. You've never been taught at school how to write a review. But you know how non-fiction writing works. So no more guidance. There you are. I told them what a review was, then said, go write it. And they did it. It wasn't brilliant, but it was more than passable. It would get them through an exam without any further training, so they are point proven. Once you know the principles of non-fiction writing, you can turn your hand to any. Which is cool. So I've been reflecting actually how in the UK I couldn't move anything. Whereas in Indonesia it's so different, and what was intriguing is I couldn't, I hate to say there have been a load of compromises with Couples for Christ in the UK I've just had reported to me. I'm not in a position to say anything or do anything about it. I don't even have contacts really with the higher ups. I don't even know who's running things, but I do know that there have been compromises which I foresaw, and I tried to tell the CFC, and as usual nobody was ever listening to me. But here in Indonesia they listen. And I tell them I'm able to explain, the basis of civilization. I'm able to show logic and reason. I got one student that I was going through. He's very intelligent, I'm an anime fan, and he's on Team REM. And we get on very well. I've been teaching him computing. He wanted that and all sorts of things. But I've also been showing him the basis for Christianity logically and rationally. And the poor guy, I went through the scientific and logical basis of Christianity, without touching the Bible at all. And the poor guy's head was spinning with the sheer amount and depth of data. The idea that Christianity has got nothing but idle faith behind it is absolute garbage. The guy couldn't cope with the sheer enormity of the data, and we still have to carry on. It's great being able to present this and explain it. I'll just shout it down. As I say, it's positive here. However, when I first arrived in Indonesia, I had a nightmare. I just need to say one thing. I do need to say this because, of course, when Christine was with the Philippines with members of the CFC, of course, they were all for when you coming back, when are you going to come and visit, yada, yada, yada. And I told Christina, and she said to them what I said. It's just not going to happen. What is interesting is that Christina kept wanting to go back to the UK. Let's go back to the UK. I like the UK. I'm so homesick for the UK. But two things have happened, interestingly enough. She's been getting the news of what's happening in the UK. The total collapse, I've been saying for ages what's been happening in the UK, and she's just not been following. But the news has finally broken through to her. And she's going, it's just so bad now, I don't want to go back anymore. She's telling me all that's going on in the UK. I said, Christine, I've been telling you this for months. I'm way ahead of the curve with you. But the other thing that was interesting was when she was out in the Philippines. Ready for this? I don't get this. She got bitten by the Philippines bug. And she says, I really want to go back to the Philippines. I love the Philippines. She even gave me, for my birthday yesterday, this is the 3rd at the time of recording, no, technically it's the 4th, she gave me 1,000 peso notes, 1,000 peso notes. Now when converted to Indonesian rupiah, that's probably just enough. Maybe I had to add a little bit onto it to get myself a 1 terabyte hard disk, which I desperately need for this old laptop because I store so much media information. I need it on hand all the time. I'm just running out of disk space. I've got files scattered across the laptop, so I can never find anything. So I'll be getting that. But she gave me the 1,000 peso notes. We took a photograph, and she said, this is a sign that one day we will go back to the Philippines. And I was going, why couldn't you have fallen in love with the Philippines? Never mind. Anyway, we are where we're meant to be, but the problems of my going back to the UK are just enormous. I can't come back. That's the sad part here. I can't come back to visit. I can't come back for illness or even for funerals. I cannot come back. I'm not going to the complexities of it all. But if I was to ever come back to the UK for reasons, for about 6 different reasons, which I'm not going to explain now, the likelihood is I'd never be able to come back to Indonesia. The UK would land me into trouble, and Indonesia would land me into trouble. There are just so many problems now. And to give you some idea, there's always a huge kickback against any degree of foreign worker. So there have been, even though it's not the law in Indonesia, it's just one example of the kind of troubles you can face. If you travel anywhere in the world with a valid entry visa to Indonesia as a foreigner, you're fine. But if you return to your home country for any reason at all, the local authorities have been revoking your visa and will not let you back into the country at all. Your visa is revoked. Although that's not the law, Indonesia is so protectionist that and there's such a kickback against any degree of foreign worker. No matter what your papers say, you return to your home country, they have been invalidating your visa. And Jokowi's been kicking up against this. He's saying, this is stupid. We need foreigners in this country. We need them to develop. But it's just nationalism, in many ways, is different to the UK. It's a different form of nationalism. It's more positive. It's the only thing that keeps a very disparate nation together. I mean, you've got the likes of crazy Islamist Archer, which is really just a protectorate of Indonesia. It's not an integrated full part of Indonesia, hence it's talked of as the exception. But you've got that on the one hand, then you've got Christian Papua on the other, which was annexed. Then you've got central Muslim majority Java, but even that is split into, with very old school, moderate Indo-Islam in the east, and then much more Wahhabist, Middle Eastern, violent Islam to the west. Now I think that's going to be changing. I think it has to change. It carries on that. He does not want Wahhabism in Indonesia because the Wahhabists who want him kicked out. It was the Wahhabists that were behind the case against Ahok. So Indonesia now has one of the largest and most widespread de-radicalisation programs anywhere in the world, although I have no data on how effective it's been. Initially it was huge. It's gone quiet since. Knowing Jokowi, a lot will be going on in the background. I've discovered the guy's a strategic genius. I completely underestimated him. He works in the background, slicing away at things very quietly, building alliances secretly, and then you get results. But I said, the sad thing is I can't come back to the UK. I love people, I love family, I love all sorts of people, but I can't come back. My respects to those in the UK have to be done from afar. If I go back, it could, almost certainly would, land me and Christina in so much trouble it is unreal. But the positive part, as I said, we are meant to be here, and I will tell you my story. Now, as you know, I was suffering terribly when I was with you before I came back to the UK. I was in tears, I was all over the shop, I was massively homesick, and when I came to Indonesia, things were even worse. What happened, I cannot exactly say. I've never been off my head like that. I've been off my head in all sorts of ways. And to this day I cannot fully explain what was going on. The one thing I can say is I had been under so much pressure for so long it was unreal from multiple angles. In a way, there had been no peace in my life for years. Although Christina liked the UK, I didn't understand how it is going to react to family. I didn't understand the Indonesian nature of family. I didn't expect the kickback. Work at Clinisys was killing me. I've had some data from Jason. He left Clinisys along with just about everybody else from the old school that ran the place to fear. It collapsed into evil after I left. It was going like that even when I was there. It was really unbelievably cruel. People, according to Jason, were just walking out. They were literally saying, "Stop this, forget it, I'm just walking out the door." No notice period, no severance pay, just walk straight out. No job, just gone. Couldn't take it anymore. So, I think multiple pressures through me, and as Julia said, when I handed in my notice at Clinisys to leave, by the way, this is a positive story, I hasten to add, but it's a story which is the redemption of something negative, so stay with me. What happened was, when I handed in my notice, I felt terrible, because I was leaving all that I knew behind, and I was jumped to my security, and I felt and as Julia said, it's the things that cause stress, change of job, change of location, change of home, okay? He says any one of these things causes tremendous stress. But she says, you're doing all of them. Yeah, it's not an easy thing to leave your old home and set up a new. But I can say it was definitely by the hand of God. And that's what I'm going to go into. So I came to Indonesia and I was very, very shaky. I had a terrible time and I had so many doubts at that stage of the game. My homesickness was off the roof. Christina was still in love with the UK in those days. That now seems to have passed. It's weird. It's like a connection to the UK has been severed and it's been attached to the Philippines. The Philippines has re-emerged in our life once more. I do not know what game God is playing, so I don't see us ending up in the Philippines. I don't see how it's going to fly, but all sorts of things happen in my life that I don't predict to plan. I actually loved the Philippines. She hated the food. The food was, she said, she had to live on bread rolls. The food in the Philippines is unbelievable. And she's tired of the Filipino dancing and partying all the time and ignoring what's going on. She loved the churches and she felt Mary very close. Mary was very close. Another little story, but for the moment. We came to, I felt so bad and I felt so wrong. Okay? And of course the trouble was when I arrived here I had to work without a valid visa because you cannot get the visa in advance. You just can't. They won't let you. So the thing is, the authorities complain about illegal workers, but you cannot get work legally in Indonesia, not for the period of time it takes to get the visa. All that Jokowi's done is he's accelerated the process for top managers so they can be in the country to see how their investment is being spent. That's it. He's accelerated the process from 3 months to get a visa to 1 month. At the moment there are mass protests, there are calls for the government to explain, everybody's saying the country is going to be flooded with millions of ethnic Chinese. Okay, it's politics, it's a way to get to Jokowi. We're now in essence election season, that card is always played. So if you are a foreign worker in Indonesia and you're heading into elections, you can face troubles. There's going to be more sweeps, more pressure, more expulsions. Well, obviously the insecurity is phenomenal. Other problems, just to give you background, and I've given up everything I ever had. Everything, including the car, but I've given up everything. So I had clothes in my suitcase, one single core Atom netbook, which was never intended to be a main use machine at the time, a couple of electronic devices, my shoes, and that was it. I had nothing else. And I didn't know at the time how bad the boss Annie was, so she's so bad that she's now running from the police. So there was no process, no understanding of the need to integrate me. So nobody at Kaplan called direct English at the time. Nobody was taking me on and saying, this is how things work, this is how you can get, and so we can buy food, this is where you can get X, Y, Z, these are people who can speak to in English. There was no support. All it was here are the classes, do them. Because Annie, it took me years to work this out, but I didn't have much contact with Annie. I was disposable. The point when I decided to quit, a whole load of reasons, one, it was getting impossible to get the papers, impossible. But also Aris has said to me, and he was a really good guy, is a really good guy, he's probably my closest friend here in Indonesia, he said, I'm quitting. I said to him, well, if you quit, I quit. I said, I'll follow you, I won't follow Annie. And as I was considering this, I suddenly realised I went up to Aris and said, Aris, wait a minute, I'm disposable, aren't I? And he went, yes. You think that you are essential. You think that you are valued. But no. You'll just be replaced. That's how Annie thinks. She thinks you're just a component that can be replaced. You walk out and just hire somebody else. We knew that wouldn't happen. We knew it's so hard to get hold of native English speakers. It's so hard to get any foreign workers in Indonesia. But the idea that you could just replace me, a native English speaker from the West, and let's be straight, Indonesian authorities, not the locals, the authorities hate Westerners because of colonialism. That there was no way they were going to get a replacement for me. And lo and behold, ever since I left, they have failed to get a valid replacement. It just hasn't happened. But I thought she could just do that, because I have never met a so-called manager who has been more dumb than Annie. That's the phrase they use for Annie. She is just dumb and corrupt. Anyway, she's left Kaplan. Kaplan's going to close in September. It's a story that's right. Annie just ran it into the ground, took all the money, and is now running from the police. Yeah. So there's no support. My accommodation at the time was in this dilapidated house of her father's, which has actually been knocked down and rebuilt. That's how nice it was. I was in this tiny room in a house share. As a married man, thinking, what have I done? What have I done? What have I done? Now, I had prayed and discerned and prayed and discerned. I had not moved out easily at all. I'd spent 8 years in discernment with Julia. 8 years! So I'd not gone out easily or lightly, and the carpet had been rolled out, and I had that word. It came from Mary. Mary said, in 2 weeks' time, you'll be in Indonesia. In 2 weeks' time, I was flying out. But I felt horrible. And Christina could handle the house because she had control of the kitchen. But there were other complications. We had no idea of the local area. Now, Surabaya West is an extremely expensive area. It's an ethnic Chinese outpost, basically a colony. And when you go to the local stores, many of the signs, many of the pricing is in Chinese. And Adriana's been brilliant because she's been my introduction to actual Indonesian culture. It's been from her and a couple of others lately. I've been learning about Indonesian family. I've been learning about local Javanese culture, because all I've actually been in contact with has been the ethnic Chinese. I know more about Chinese culture than I do Indonesian culture. And because it's a business centre, because it's the ethnic Chinese, because you have to spend money to show face, everything in Surabaya West is unbelievably expensive. So there was I had no medical insurance. They couldn't give me medical insurance. Now, I didn't know this at the time, but if I'd have been ill, okay, then the likelihood is Kaplan would have paid for me. But it didn't make that clear to me. There was no sense of support. As Christina said later, she says, there was no support for us at all. It was just, one day, here's a bit of training, here's your TOEFL, get on with the job. Okay? So, we would go to shop, we would go to what we thought was the local supermarket, and we would buy things. And we were saying, oh, it's so cheap here, we've got a chance here. And I was doing the math, and I was going, this is all the same price as the UK. But I was on 25% of my income from the UK, 25%. So everything's costing the same price, but I have 1/4 of the income. Again, I was thinking, what the hell have I done? Now, it turns out this is the stupidity of the situation. If somebody had given us some local knowledge, we'd have been fine. It turns out we were buying everything from the hypermarket in what is called the Civ Mall. Now, the Civ Mall is, or was, for the richest of the rich. They've actually expanded it and added a third mall in the same location, okay, which is even more expensive. At the time, there were 2 malls which we didn't know about. We only knew about the Super Mall. The Super Mall is all Western imports. And it's all geared towards the rich ethnic Chinese. These are people who buy Apple Macs, not because they like Apple, not because Apple is in any way superior to Windows or the forbidden Linux. No, it's because it has the Apple logo. And the Apple logo indicates you spent money. And if you spend money, that equals status, and status equals face. And if you don't have face, you cannot do business. So everything the Chinese are forced to buy at the right price. You walk, all you have to do is walk through one door, and we were in PTC Mall, where everything's 1/3 the price. Much closer to local Indonesian prices, but we didn't know. So for months we were spending 4 times as much as we needed to do. It was crazy. One door, and we actually read Indonesian marketing. We had no idea. Well, this was obviously taking a strain on a system that had been overloaded and overloaded and overloaded. I think there was the spiritual involved. That house had a really bad atmosphere. It was really bad. And something happened to me. My mind was breaking. It was breaking. And what I was having was, I couldn't describe it. I couldn't sleep at nights. I had sweat pouring off me. But it was like electric shocks were going through the body. Now, it was eventually explained to me by this psychiatrist in Singapore that it was my adrenal glands were being totally overloaded. My adrenal glands were just pumping. I was overloaded with adrenaline, and there was no way to stop it. But I'd never had an adrenaline pump like this. I couldn't stop it, and it was causing me physical pain. I really was. I cannot describe it. There's never had anything like this before or since. I've had a lot happen. I swear to you, it was like electric shock treatment. It was really, really painful. I wasn't just psychologically suffering, my body was breaking down. Christina and I were also so homesick, it was unreal. Now, we didn't even know about culture shock. In hindsight, a whole lot of things about Christina's reaction to the UK makes sense. She was going through culture shock, which we did not understand. Plus, we did not understand what Indonesian family is like, not helped by the fact that in Indonesia, family is there to abuse you, but nobody's allowed to admit it. Everybody has to pretend that they love their family, they're devoted to their family, when the family is just using them like crazy. So there's a whole load of you do not say in Indonesia. So, we had actually elected one night to go back to the UK anyway, because we just couldn't handle Indonesia anymore. The job was going great, the job was going wonderfully, the students loved me, I was getting results already, people ranked me as a teacher, I was naturally good at it, but psychologically all sorts of things were frying both of us. We wanted to go back, hence the backwards forwards with you guys. We were all over the place, both of us, but I was worse. I'm not justifying myself in this one, I just can't explain it. I think I had a full madness. My mind and my body were not cooperating. They really were not cooperating. And I was in a state of terror. As I said, there were a lot of pressures. I've been overloaded for so long, at every possible level. Plus, I was being overloaded in Indonesia. I had no support. the accumulation of that was huge even before I arrived in Indonesia, and then everything just went pop. And there was nobody to show me how things actually worked in the country. We were lost, we were bereft. And having lived on the NHS, I was terrified of the fact that I didn't have any medical cover. And I couldn't get medical cover. And I couldn't get medical cover until I got the papers, and that was massively delayed. It was just a mess. And as a result, though I can't explain what happened to me, everything really hurt. I was in pain. We were seeing the doctors and nothing was working out. We had agreed to go out to Singapore and to see a psychiatrist, but Christian and I both thought we just wanted to be back in the UK. I wanted to go back to the UK. It was culture shock. We didn't know about culture shock at the time. We didn't know that people feel like this. When you leave your country, you go to another one, you become massively homesick, but that was not explained. I wanted to come back and I wanted to hug a British traffic light. Now, I feel at the time I had no connection to the UK when I was there, but I was in Indonesia. All I wanted to do was go back to the UK. I wanted the rain. I wanted to see the green. I wanted cold, dark nights. Everything in the UK suddenly called to me, it seemed. It was culture shock. But in addition to that, I was in agony. Because I've been back and forth. We'd actually agreed the night before everything happened that we should go back to the UK, that neither of us was happy in Indonesia. But then, in the morning, I was in agony. My body hurt. I was up at 4 o'clock in the morning. My body was, my muscles were cramping. I had electric shock, sweat pouring off me. I was freaking. I can't even remember that day very well. I can't actually remember what occurred in the morning. I remember what happened to some degree, but I can't actually remember the experience. It was so weird. So I can't remember what the sequence of events was, but I know that I actually booked my ticket to go back to the UK in the morning. I got my Lloyd's card, which is still valid. I went online and I booked the ticket back to the UK. Surabaya to London Heathrow. That's why I emailed you and said I bought my ticket and coming back today, I can't handle it anymore. Okay? And I couldn't, it seemed. Stay with me. Now, something happened which I did not know. It was, if I may say so, God bless Christina. She's a wonderful girl in many ways. She's been a great support to me, believe it or not, in Indonesia. Natural born teacher, running the place wonderfully, because she cannot communicate. Her mother turns up. She didn't tell me she brought her mother along. She told me after I bought the ticket. Anyway, I know there were arguments and all this sort of stuff and grief about my buying the ticket and all this sort of stuff. But it was agreed that I should go back, and it was agreed that in principle Christian would join me, but you could tell by the subtext it wasn't going to happen. Nevertheless, I committed. Talk about it being insane. Everything that was happening was insane. My mind had cracked. My mind and my body had cracked. That's when I saw the psychiatrist who put me on Xanax, which I since discovered is an unbelievably addictive drug, and is now illegal in Indonesia. And I went through the withdrawal coming off and it was horrible. Do not touch Xanax. But nevertheless, it kind of saw me through. Anyway. A chain of circumstances occurred and I'm in the taxi. And I just can't turn my back on this. Now I've spent large amounts of money. I spent about £800 to get back. I don't know where I am anymore. I don't know. My spirit was the one part of it in some way saying, this is wrong. You should not be going back. And this is one of those moments where everything natural had been exhausted. So I was in the taxi and I was praying to Jesus, specifically Jesus. Jesus, I don't know anymore. I don't know anymore. I'm completely lost. I'm cracking up here in Indonesia. My body can't take this. I can't get across to you how painful everything was. I'm not even going to go into the story. It's just I was screaming in pain, physical pain, with all the muscles cramping, uncontrollably. I don't know what's going on. I still can't explain it. The only explanation I had was my adrenal glands had gone into overload and could not be brought back normal. There's a medication in it. Anyway, I'm in the taxi and said, Jesus, I don't know anymore. I think I'm making a mistake going back to the UK. But I'm going backwards and forwards and backwards and forwards. I don't know anymore. It's over to you. I don't know. So I say this, if this is not of you, stop the flight. If I'm meant to stay in Indonesia, stop the flight. I can't do any more, so I've taken the natural route, it's over to you, I don't know. Now they say you put a fleece before Jesus and you've eliminated every other possible route of discernment. And I had nobody to liaise with, nobody to talk to. I had no priest, no pastor. There was nobody in Indonesia to process, nothing. I didn't know what to do. So and that text, I'm just repeating it, this is not of you, stop the flight. It's now a fleece, because I can't discern anymore. I'm beyond the capacity to reason. All I know is, at the time, is I was hurting physically and psychologically, and I didn't feel like I could cope. So we arrive at Surabaya Airport, me and Christina's mother. And I don't have a printer, but I do have the ticket saved as a PDF file on my little netbook. So I show them the PDF, I give them the number, so they can give me the ticket. It's a quite horrible scenario. I said to Christina, come back, come and join me. Yeah, I'll come back and join you. And you just know it's not going to happen. I go back to the UK, my marriage is over. But I can't bring it in me now to cancel this. I've gone too far. I've gone backwards, I've gone forwards, I've gone backwards, I've gone forwards. I knew this, I had to see something through. Which is why you've got so open, stay with the story. So, we wait for the ticket to be given to me. I'm still praying, if this is not of you, stop the flight. Time passes. And passes. Where's the ticket? So it goes up. No, could you give us the ticket, please? The flight is not long now. He said, but we're looking into it, we'll get you the ticket. So you wait, patient. There is no ticket. Christina goes to them, it's getting very close to the flight, 15 minutes to go. Can you give us the ticket, please? We can't find it. What do you mean you can't find it? We don't know, we can't find the ticket. Wait for us. I'm just sitting there, and I'm praying, Jesus, if this is of you, stop the flight. There is no ticket. Christina goes to me, where is the ticket? He said, there is no ticket. What do you mean there is no ticket? I showed him the laptop. There's the ticket, it's on my laptop. There it is, you can see the ticket. Yeah, we know. We can't find the ticket. They couldn't explain it. They didn't know what was going on. There was my PDF file. It said, it's had the ticket there, but they had to give me a physical printout. There was no ticket. The plane flew out. I was not on the flight. None of us knew what was going on. But I now know I've got my answer. But we still wanted to know what was happening. So Christina asked again, what happened? Paul said, we don't know. There's no ticket, that's all we can tell you at the moment. We waited another half an hour. I remember this part. Eventually, they called out to Christina and they said, again, there is no ticket. I said, what do you mean there is no ticket? He said, there's no notification of the Lawrence Coombs on the computer system. You're not on the computer system. When we looked for your ticket, you were not booked on the flight. There was no record here in Surabaya. We had to call all the way to central office in Jakarta, and they checked through the Jakarta computer system. You weren't on the computer system, and they checked the payment system, and they showed us the message. They were finally faxed the message on the computer system regarding my flight, and it said, payment timeout expired. Well, what does that mean, we said. We don't know, they said. We've never seen that message before. I said, but there it is on my computer, there's the PDF, and I've even saved the transfer details from the bank. The ticket was paid for. They just looked at me blankly. They could not explain. So we went back, we explained it to the mother, who laughed, and she said, well, that's God then, isn't it? And at that point, I had peace. At that point, it was clear I was meant to be in Indonesia, because that flight for me had been stopped. That was why I was then able to say to you, it's okay, I'm all right, because everything had changed. Because there was the hand. I didn't dare explain what had happened at that stage in the game. What happened was the boss Henki sent me out to see a psychiatrist in Singapore. I had to go out to go get a visa anyway, so and I saw this guy, and he explained that I saw this guy was very nice. He gave me a very super cheap rate, and he explained that my adrenal glands, the reason I was suffering was they were totally overloaded. They were pumping too much adrenaline, and the body just couldn't cope. He gave me Xanax, which was a stupid drug to put me on. But I'm discovering a number of psychiatrists in the East, they like to prescribe horribly addictive drugs, get you addicted to them, and then they just keep supplying. They become legal drug pushers. I've been trying to help one kid out with exactly that scenario, put him in touch with Dr. Uchi, because she cures people. Eventually I saw Dr. Uchi, and she was a great help. And just let you know how things settled down. Afterwards, a number of things caused a change. I saw Dr. Uchi, she was very good, and she helped me to stabilise and settle in Indonesia. The other thing was this: I knew after a while I had to get out of the house. Now, John had been threatened by the authorities. This is in the days when John was still alive, and he stayed away from work for a month. He was so scared, because they were doing sweeps. The leaders said, "You better not be working." And of course, because of the delays in getting papers, he couldn't get his papers in time. So he says, "No, I go to Kaplan. I go to Kaplan, I could be arrested." He'd already been deported once. He'd been deported once in Indonesia, but the second time I was never allowed back in again, ever. In some areas Indonesia's eased up. In other areas it's got even tighter. At the moment, since Jokowi sort of teamed up with Megawati, it's gone more and more against foreign workers. And Jokowi's been complaining about the sweep. He says even when people get papers in Indonesia, what happens is you keep having immigrants coming around and sweeping to check papers, and then sweeping again to check papers. He says it intimidates people. They say, "I'm not putting up with this." Even if they're legal, they want to quit. Jokowi gets it, but it's political dynamite here. The belief is entrenched that every job given to a foreigner is a job not given to a local. Jokowi is trying to explain, no, we need some foreign workers to check their investment so that they can employ 1,000 local workers. But it's always a political weapon in Indonesia. Just one single foreign worker, that's it. You're against the Indonesian workers, you are not pro-Indonesia, you are not nationalistic, bang. So John couldn't work for a month. It was the hand of God, because I was asked to take up all his classes. Again, there's no communication, nobody told me what was going on, but I raked in a load of money from doing overtime. I was shattered, I was exhausted, but it meant we had money. Now in Indonesia, and the other things that's scary, is you have to pay for everything up front. So you don't pay rent in Indonesia, you don't pay it per month. No, you pay 2 years up front. The rent is reasonable, but the sheer amount you have to pay, everything in is up front. You're going to buy a house, you pay 50% up front. You're going to buy a car, you pay 50% up front. Everything is up front in Indonesia. There isn't very much of a concept of hire purchase. This is a concept of actually being introduced into Indonesians. When we changed over to landlord, I explained to him, rather than paying 2 years up front, we could both benefit by us paying a deposit and paying a certain amount per month. You've got constant income, it's easier for us to pay, it's rolling, we don't need to keep renewing contracts. And initially he was, no, contract, no. And he went, hang on a minute, I think it through. This actually works. I bring all sorts of new ideas to Indonesia, because in Indonesia, for various reasons, it's very much, this is the way things are done without regard to cause and effect. I've been told by Indonesians there's no cause and effect reasoning here. You just do things because that's the tradition. But when I introduce people to cause and effect, if we do this, we get this result. They step back, they blink in shock surprise, they think about it, they go, I never thought of it that way. And then they see the sense. So consider I have an almost unique arrangement in the locality because we pay per month. Whereas everybody else has to fork out 2 years in advance. And if they want to renew the contract, they've got to fork out another year in advance. But what it was because we had that money, I said to Christina, I've got to get out of this house. It was Annie, let's be straight, Annie was just so corrupt, it was unreal. And we know she's fooling around with the occult. And of course, as always happens with the occult, it will be back against her. And now she has unbelievable debts she will never pay off, hence she's on the run from the police and debt collectors. And we're in this awful dilapidated house, shared with another guy who was nice enough, but the father would come in, he'd smoke and he'd drink and he'd play cards, which I think is illegal in Indonesia, but I'm not quite sure. But it just wasn't a good atmosphere. And it wasn't a house of our own, it was just a room. I said, I've got to get out. Now, at that time, we just managed to hire a maid. And she was our entry point to the reality of Indonesian and Surabaya life. And she was wonderful. Because she was able to say, why are you buying everything from the super mall? Why don't you buy from PTC Mall? And tells us about the door. What? And then she says, there's the local market here. You can buy all of your food and all of your fish and all this from there at a tenth of the price. What? It was wonderful. She started to introduce us to real Indonesia, not all the Western imports. We hadn't got a clue. And of course, there's family. They were near Surabaya. Of course, in my naivety, I thought, well, if family's there, they'll help us to settle in. No, that's not how it works. They were no use to us at all. That's how it is in Indonesia. But the locals actually were very, very good. We actually got to meet them. And then I said to Christina, I've got to get out of this house. And I gave her a specification. I said, okay, you want to see it? I come here to achieve certain mission objectives. So I gave him a listing. I want a 3-bedroom house with a proper toilet, not a hole in the floor, as a lot of Indonesian households have. Okay, it needs to be a reasonable size. I'm not looking to buy, I'll rent, I live with rent, but I need this 3-bedroom house. And the 3-bedroom house was for a reason. Okay, it wasn't just off the top of my head. I won't go into reasons for the 3-bedroom house was planned. And Christy went, okay, we're going to go. She said later to me, she said, I don't know how we're going to do it. I was thinking, how can I do this? How can I get him out to a house? But nevertheless, she had a bit of faith. She spoke to the maid. It was incredible. I said to her, I must live in a house. I must move out. I didn't even know how to do it. I was talking to some students, they showed me around, they showed me the housing, and of course the speaks about Western housing was unbelievably small, unbelievably expensive, and you pay everything up front. Another thing that caused fear, nothing when we first arrived made sense. And it was not, Surabaya was not like, as Christina was used to in the villages. It's a completely different way of operating. And nobody was there to help us to adjust. But nevertheless, we agreed we were going to be in the house somewhere somehow, had no idea how to do it, but Christina spoke to the maid, and the maid immediately went, I know exactly where you can go. That very morning. Christina went and saw the place. She contacted me at work. She says, I found the house. Come this afternoon. In a period of 24 hours, we sorted out the house. I walked into the house. I knew nothing about the house. I knew nothing. I walked into the house. I went straight into the living room. I put my finger in the air. And I went, I love this house. We're meant to be here. I knew instinctively. I said, I love the spiritual atmosphere. It was so clear. It was so clear being compared to both anywhere in the UK and the horrible house that we've been in, which when it was eventually purchased, it was bulldozed and rebuilt from scratch. It was so bad. The locals didn't like it either. Well, it turns out that it was, being rented by a Christian pastor. And she'd rented the place out, subletted it to various Christians and Christian preachers, and they would come in here and they would pray. But the trouble she had was that people were only coming for short periods of time. Nobody would stay in the house long term. So we came into a deal, we settled up, and it turns out eventually, and there's a love of money in Indonesia which beggars belief. Money overrides everything here. The love of money overrides family, friends, anything. Especially when people go blind when you put money in front of them. They'll take the money no matter what the cost. No matter what the consequences. We're being a witness here because, as I said to Christina, if you are honest in Indonesia and if you are generous, it shakes people. They're not used to it. He says, yeah, that's absolutely right. So we're trying to be a witness here. You can't talk about religion directly. You don't go out, you don't go into debates between Christians and Muslims. It's dangerous. It really is. So you have to witness by your actions, but your actions are noted. We have been criticised by the locals for being too generous. Oh no, oh woe is me. Yeah. We've been criticised for giving to all sorts of organisations which they say, oh, those organisations are corrupt, so I investigate, and they're not. All sorts of things. There are all manner of excuses for not giving, not being generous, because it's, I would say it's for you and your family, but actually it all boils down to you. You'll betray your family. You'll invest in your children, but then you expect the children to pay for you. Your children are your income, your children are your pension here. But anyway, the house was exactly my specification. Exactly what I've been asking for. 3 bedrooms, proper toilet, proper facilities, and it came fully furnished. And for the local area, at a rock bottom price. And as you were going to discover later on, perfectly situated to set up our own business. Once I moved into the house, I stabilised like crazy. Because I had achieved mission objective. I had done something in Indonesia that I could not do in the UK. There was no way I could afford a house. We couldn't afford to rent a house. The council tax alone in Surrey was crippling. I looked up the council tax. The council tax for a 3-bedroom house in the UK was something like £500 a month. It was just, and that was before we even talked about rent and insurance. It would have consumed every penny I had from my income at Clinicis. Accommodation in the UK is just unbelievably expensive. So anyway, I won't go into the details any further now. The opportunities for us in Indonesia are now huge. The way has opened up. We now know what's going on. We now know what we're doing. Adrian has been a real help for me to break out of the ethnic Chinese colony to find out what Indonesia is really about. And I can say that we're now flying. But that is the story. And that, of course, is why I drove you nuts, because I was all over the place. But the reason I was able to say, I'm okay, and then you freaked, understandably, dicing down the scotch, was because Jesus had stopped the flight. At that point, any real doubts about where we were supposed to be ended. And then after that, everything started to come together. After that moment, everything came together. And once I moved into this house, I calmed down. My adrenal glands settled. I was meeting mission objectives. I was finally having more than I had in the UK. And then other things came into place, like I was worried about not having a car, but in Indonesia you don't need one. It's a completely different system. Cars here in Indonesia are about status, not actually about usability. No, I don't give a thought about status. So, anyway, I'm doing really well here. That is the story I felt I needed to tell. There is an explanation, not of my madness, but my reversal of madness. In the end, Jesus made it very clear, yes, you are supposed to be here. He stopped the flight. It was so funny. What does this message mean? We don't know. We've never seen it before. So that is enough of my story. I'll leave it at that for now. God bless to you and to all. He's certainly blessing me and Christina out here, and I have many good things that I will say more in time. Okay? But I felt I had to tell that tale. Oh yeah, I said I'd like to come in stage. Just one little thing I want to add in. I think it's kind of amusing as well. I'll just say how much I snapped back after I'd been out, after I'd had this message through the lost ticket and moving on out. I did see Dr. Uchi, who's been really, really good, and I've sent a number of my students who needed help in her direction. Dia was a case in point. But it's very funny. Initially, we went to hospital because I needed help. My brain was all over the place. And I met a lovely guy by the name of Dr. Yanwa at Dr. Sutama Hospital. And he took me under his wing. But he couldn't see me. So he passed me on to a subordinate at the time, Dr. Uchi. Dr. Uchi saw me. At the time I'd been prescribed Xanax, and it was, she was very po-faced, but you could just about see, her eyes narrow when she saw the word Xanax, and she went, okay, I'm going to put you on this called Sit, Relax, and she kept me on the Xanax because she knew if I came off it, I would go, the reaction would be phenomenal, but she phased me off it pretty quickly. I went through a horrible withdrawal. But as I said, in the intervening period, we also managed to move into the house, which was a huge step forward for me. That was absolutely enormous, and my personality started to reassert itself. So I wasn't yet ready to get back into anime, but I did start watching Korean dramas. And then as my personality reasserted itself, I returned to my beloved anime. Hurrah! But what was interesting is after a short while, I just came off the drugs. And I was seeing Dr. Uchi on a regular basis. And Dr. Uchi's great. A lot of psychiatrists, not the ones at Dr. Sutamo, I hasten to add, they seem to be pretty good. But there are a number of psychiatrists, and I've known people who've had this, and they will just prescribe really addictive drugs, and they'll keep you on them. They're basically legal drug pushers. That's the problem with a totally private system. With a totally private system, the doctors are in it to make money. The problem with a fully socialised system such as the NHS is that eventually just run out of money. The taxation burden just goes up and up and up and up. I've had debates on this on the internet as to which way to go on this. I'm trying to find a sort of middle way, but that aside, Dr. Uchi is interested in cures, not in pumping drugs. So there was I, seated in the corridor on this rather comfy chair, very tired. I've been worked very hard by Kaplan, very hard, because as I said, if you are a native English speaker, if you're foreign at all, you end up being worked, doing the work of 2-3 people. This has happened wherever I go, wherever I've been in Indonesia, you're always overworked. At least now, with real tuition, we are really starting to get proper rest now. It's happening. It's taken us years and years and years, but we're now in control. We've got the mothers to at least give us Sundays where we have much more control. But yeah, there was I seated there. And Dr. Yanhua came out of Dr. Uchi's consultation room. And he came up to me, and I remember the conversation. And he says, is it Larry? Because of course everybody calls me Larry out in Indonesia. He said, how are you doing? I said, good, I'm doing pretty good actually. He says, how are you feeling? I said, very good. Yeah, seriously, it's going very well. Okay, he says, tell me, what medication are you on? I looked at Christine, I said, medication? Well, I'm not really, I'm not on medication. Oh, he said, okay, well done, that's good. And wandered off. It was not a conversation. I was confused as to why he would ask about my medication, since I was not actually his patient. So, shortly after that, Dr. Uchi called us in, and I mentioned the conversation. She laughed, and she says, well, what happened before he spoke to you is we'd had a conversation, she said. And he'd asked me what medication you were on. Well, he isn't, she said. I've got him off the stuff and he's doing fine. And he went, no. He says, come on, tell me the truth. He says, people like him, people with his condition, apparently they call it maladjustment disorder, but anyway, he said, people like him, they don't recover that quickly. What have you got him on? Nothing, she says, he's fine, he's okay. No, he says, what medication have you put him on? Stop fooling with him. She says, I'm not fooling with him. And she says, he would not believe me. So he knocks on that, and there I was, by fluke. So of course he checked. I was on that medication. So just to reinforce the point, once I had confirmation that we really were meant to be in Indonesia, matched up with the fact that God then put us in this house, then everything reasserted itself very rapidly. As I said, I can't exactly explain why for it. I do think the demonic was involved because that house was horrible and had all sorts of nasty influences. Let's be straight, the Annie household is not a place of honour. I know at least Annie was fooling around with the occult. But yeah, that was the beginning of the turnaround. That was the beginning of everything moving in the right direction, apart from the sheer amount of overwork. But that now is coming to an end. As I said, we're looking forward to all sorts of things. I've done the figures, just to let you know, and yeah, because it's been on like getting house. To be fair, in Indonesia, it's actually, one, it's much more affordable once you get out of the big cities, and we have a location in mind. And because of the investments we've made, The figures now tally. It was the wrong time before, but I believe we can do it. We'll still be living in Surabaya. Our business is still here, and I'm always nervous about buying a house because if you can't pay the mortgage, it's game over. But the huge amounts of taxation, the huge amounts of regulations, the huge amounts of extra costs which the government uses for revenue are just not here in Indonesia. You have to pay an awful lot up front, but we have got the resources to do it. So I'm looking at buying a small house just for Christina's psyche in a way, but also as backup. Whether we will actually live there in the future, I just do not know, but it will be there as an option and Christina will then breathe. Because in Indonesia, if you do not have a house, you're not regarded as having a pension. In Indonesia, your house is your pension. The expectation in the country is, because you don't have state pensions, and people don't value money, they value assets. Money, just let you know, is only transitory. They'll kill for the money. Once they've got the money, they will spend it. Either they'll spend it on status symbols, or they will spend it on assets, gold, housing, whatever. Actual money isn't seen as having any worth. Culturally, Indonesia has been a land of the land, so you trade in cows and chickens and property. Okay, I mean, people in places like Blitar will literally trade in cows. So paper money has very little intrinsic worth historically here, and also because of the great collapse of 1998. I only found out relatively recently that not only did you have the collapse in 1998, but this is also what put people on the streets in riots. Is the IMF sent money to support the banks, but the elites in power stole every single penny. As I said, there's a lot of money. Even though I talk about assets, there's a lot of money that I can't describe. It dwarfs even the Philippines' love of money. Even the ethnic Chinese, I feel, and they're money obsessed. There's a lot of money here I cannot describe. It's unbelievable, and family will betray family for it. So what happened was, the elite stole every penny. Not one penny of aid made it to the locals, and the banks collapsed because it was far better. The money went into the pockets of the elites, the Suharto regime, than it did into the banks to support the people. They preferred total economic collapse of the country, rather than lose their own share. Well, of course, people went to the streets. So yes, in Indonesia, because of this background, culturally, the belief is that you have to have your house, because if you have your house, you don't pay for rent. Then all you have to worry about is food. In order to get your food, you rear your children, and the children are expected to give you their money in order to sustain you in your old age. So if you have your house and you have your children, then you are set for the future and you can retire. Because you don't rely upon the state, and you don't rely upon pensions. Because pensions can evaporate, the banks collapse. Now, as I've tried to point out, because this has happened, because of Indonesian reaction, the probability of pensions being allowed to collapse is remote, because everybody is scared senseless of a repeat of 1998. It is scarred on the Indonesian psyche, it really is. Nobody wants another 1998. But we're having to compromise here. We have got investments, we have got pensions, but in addition to that, we can look towards buying a house. Even if we don't use it, I'm making sure that if it goes wrong, we can jettison it. I've been running the figures through, and although we can't pay for the house totally upfront, when a number of investments mature, we would in essence be able to pay for the house, a very small house to start with, then we can expand it by adding extensions. And we'll be able to build it, and we'll be able to purchase it effectively in cash, in lump sums. What there'll be is a large lump payment up front, then a few years paying a low mortgage rate, high interest, but I'll cope with that just for security, so we can continue being generous, because being generous is a huge witness here. I'll tell you a story in a minute. What we then do is, when investments mature, we put that money bang into the house and we just pay off the rest, roughly speaking. I'll have to see if it eventually works out. I've been learning about house purchasing goes here, so I've got a long way to go. Aris is helping out, but this is the next major project once I've got past exam season. After that, I go on to what I call Plan B. Plan A, stabilise the tuition. That's just about sorted. Plan B, purchase house, purchase property. Plan C is to try and engage with the local Indonesian education system in ways I won't explain. That should have us well and truly set up for the future. The interesting thing though is I'm very keen on being generous in Indonesia. God bless Christina. She's a very spontaneous person. We've accepted our strengths and weaknesses. She's much better at bureaucracy. She's much better at the paperwork. Her figures just bend in front of me. She's much better at liaising with the clients. In terms of what's happening, I often have to tell her what to say, but she does the smartphone thing. Oddly enough, for somebody who's into technology, I hate smartphones. Of course, it's in the Bahasa, and I've not had a chance to learn the language. That should be happening after exam season. Then Adriana will sit me down and we're going to learn this language because I'm able to carve time out. I could even put down as a class, I suppose. Now he's been taught from 2 till 3 in the afternoon, kind of class at this time in order for him to learn Bahasa. We'll see. But what is interesting is everybody in this area is called Susie. Every other person is called Susie. So we're called Susie Kaplan. She's secretary at Kaplan, although she's likely to lose her job. Kaplan is set to close in September. That's effectively guaranteed. But anyway, she's still the secretary at the moment. So we talk about Kaplan Susie. There was another Susie who met at Mass a few times. We call her Complaining Susie. She was a teacher at Kaplan for a short while. She wasn't that good, and she complained about everything. Nothing was right. And eventually she quit from Kaplan. And she's ended up working for a Canadian who's running his own business, kind of like no tuition. And like us, he hires other teachers, but it's much more sort of franchising operation rather than the tuition service that we provide here. And they've been getting far less students. Now, it's not just me. Christina's been bringing far more students. So there was an interesting conversation going on. Because, as I said, I'm talking about Christina's much better at the day-to-day operation, but I'm much better at the strategic thinking. I'm the one that comes up with plans, and I'm the one that sees very sensing versus intuition. I'm very good at being able to say, because this has happened, this is going to happen, because the government is doing this will have impact over here. If we do this, then this will occur. So I tend to set the strategy. So my strategy has been, for crying out loud, we must be generous. And we are, and the locals love us a lot. Yeah, there are those that complain, but the local Arte and the head man, the various degrees of head men in the area, they love us because when they are in need, we give. National Independence Day is huge. It's the biggest celebration in Indonesia. It is the foundation of Indonesia, but the trouble is they always want to give a good National Independence Day celebration, but nobody here will pay for it, except us. And this is where Christina gains her marks. She will spontaneously give. The amount of times she'll come to me and she says, I saw somebody, they were in need, and I gave this money. They came asking for National Independence Day, so I gave this money. I met this person in the street, they were in need, and I gave this money. Now you just don't do this in Indonesia. People just do not give the money like that. I want to give credit to Christina in this respect. Trying to get her to hold to a plan is difficult sometimes, but she's spontaneous, but she'll also give from the heart at that moment. And that's where she differs from the vast majority of Indonesians. Why do I mention this? Because Susie spoke to Kaplan Susie and complaining and saying, how is it that Christina's business is booming? How is it she's got so many clients, whereas we struggle to get them in? And Susie says something very interesting, and Kaplan Susie's Muslim, and she says, well, Christina is always generous. She always gives money away. And so God makes sure that she always has clients. And there is some truth in this. We've been testing the line, give and it will be given to you. And in parts of the UK I gave and it was not given to me. I just had trial after trial after trial. But here, the atmosphere is much clearer. It's much easier for us to do what Dad called the Jesus thing. And our resources are much greater than the average Indonesian, even though we do live in a very affluent area. A lot of the locals around us will be earning more than us, but they also have huge amounts of debt. They spend huge amounts of money on their houses in Surabaya. The cost of accommodation here is well, housing, buying housing is huge. House prices have gone through the roof in Surabaya, but not as bad elsewhere in the country. We'll be buying outside of Surabaya ultimately. But yeah, we give, and somehow we never lack for clients. So yeah, we've settled back in, as I say. So that really is the end. I forgot to add that little piece in there to say that once we'd had that word from, well, that message from, absence of ticket from Jesus, and once I moved into the house, then it was just a tidying up our operation with Dr. Uchi, and I settled so fast that Dr. Yanwar couldn't believe how things sorted on out, and now we're doing very well here. I think that really must be the end.